He's a turnaround. Whoa, turn around. Turning point, yeah. He's a turnaround. For so long, we've been here. We've been trying to break free. Change that.
Hello and welcome to Springboard of Virtual University. A beautiful Sunday evening, and we are glad to come to you live with this amazing discussion about the year 2020 and what it has been and what promises to be an equally interesting 2021. Springboard is brought to you by Legacy and Legacy and your superstation Joy 99.7 FM. The broadcast is made possible by the kind courtesy of some of Ghana's finest brands. MTN Pulse, Just Be, UMB Bank, UMB Speed Up, DigiBank, Let's Go, the Enterprise Group, Enterprise Your Advantage, and the Access Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pensions. A big thank you to our print media partner, The Graphic Business, for supporting us all the year through. What can we say? Thank you to all our partners and our supporters. We are live on Facebook, and wherever you are in the world, you can be part of this all-important discussion. It's 18 days more to the end of the year 2020, and if you had a blank sheet and one word to describe this year, what would that word be? I can just imagine that you would have your own special word for this year, but one thing is certain, it's been an unusual year, and the descriptions will definitely be out of the ordinary. Helping us review this year is my good friend and brother, the Vice President of Imani and a legal practitioner, Kofi Bentil. Kofi, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Wow. What would you describe the year, what word would you use to describe the year 2020?
Revealing.
I like that. Why would you say that?
Because, you kept going on about everything, and all of a sudden everybody's made to stop, and you're forced to identify the things that matter and the people that matter. And forced to get yourself in a situation where, for instance, you can stay at home for 1 week and not go anywhere. And it's really brought out many things. It reveals to people, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. It brings out things that you've taken for granted, and all of a sudden you have to confront. I, for one, I have never been together with my family for as long as I was over this period. We were all just locked up in a room for 2 weeks or so. In our house for 2 weeks or so. And it's revealing. It reveals so many things. Who is important? What is important? And that is something I think will remain with us for a long time.
Do you think that several years after this year, people will describe their lives as before 2020 and after 2020?
Absolutely. It's already etched. And it happens once every 100 years. But many, in fact, maybe a century. There will be other momentous things. But this particular year draws a line because all the time till now, we were in one kind of arrangement. With all the technology, with all the information, with all, even the wealth, the people's capabilities. You have very rich people today, and people can do all kinds of things. It's all been brought to bear, even the ability to communicate. The world has never been this capable when it comes to communication. And we were forced to, really pick up the things that we had, brush them up, and use them. So definitely it's going to be before 2020 and after 2020.
And there's something about this year. It's also like a make or break year. Some people made it, some people were broken. There's almost like no middle ground.
Also revealing.
Yeah.
You'll be going on and you think you are everything and, indestructible till bam. And then you realize nothing. You are not as capable as you thought you were. Everything just grinds to a halt because you can move about. And then you're also going on and you didn't think things were so good, but all of a sudden you're able to put yourself together and then get through life and really not much happened to you. Look, make no mistake, 2020 has been a great year for some people.
That's what I was coming to, because when I said make or break, I meant that those who have done well have done extremely well. And when they explain it, you open your mouth.
Yes.
And those who have been hit extremely hard. And when they explain it, you open your mouth.
So it's revealing.
Whichever case, you open your mouth.
Yeah, it's very revealing. Yeah.
If you just join us, my guest is Kofi Bentil. When Kofi and I meet, we talk like that. We just have fun and just talk. But tonight, it's not just about fun. We also are trying to explore economics, health, politics, governance, education, leadership, management. But in all this, Kofi says the things that matter were brought to the fore. So this program is in two parts. Before I settle down with Kofi into the details of what worked and what didn't work, let me get to the thoughts of Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, clinical psychologist and medical practitioner, to try and help us to understand the family aspect and how people dealt with the unique situation that they found themselves in, especially during the lockdown and beyond. So, Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, you wear different hats as a clinical psychologist, a minister of the gospel, a medical doctor, and a carpenter. I'm sure you're wearing all four hats today, but let's start with your description of the year 2020. Some say it's probably the most disruptive year in the history of humankind. How will you describe this year?
Well, I think it's been challenging, but a stepping stone to something major that can happen to this world. Because usually crisis is able to unearth various deficiencies in our systems, our personal lives, and our families. And it actually prepares us for something bigger ahead. So the year has been challenging and also revealing. That is how I'll put it: challenging and revealing. And it's been more empowering because of all the changes that had to be made in this time of crisis to make sure that everybody is coping well. And so that is how I describe the year: challenging, revealing, and more empowering.
You talk about something major that could happen next year. Do you have any idea about the form it could take?
I think that there are more crises coming up and more pandemics and more uncertainties, things that will challenge the whole world. I think that there are more stuff coming up. If you look at the trends of this world, you realize that every year doesn't become better. There is no year that is better than the previous years. And so the challenges, I think, are going to be we are going to be worse off than we experienced this year.
Now, that makes you public enemy number one, because some are saying that the economies of this world have literally not recovered from the disruption that 2020 has brought. So to say that there's possibly more crisis and more pandemics is absolutely scary, Doc. Are you saying this as a medical practitioner or as a prophet?
I think that it's purely based on observations, because if you look at trends all over the world, you realize that things aren't really getting better on many levels. Though some parts of our lives are improving. When you look at technology, you look at media, and some of the discoveries, in other aspects of our lives, it's becoming better. But even in that sense, the challenges are becoming more. If you look at family life, career, economy, everything is becoming, I won't use the word worse, but things are becoming more and more challenging. So it's more of observing trends over the years. I didn't hear that.
Doc, continue. You made a point about family life, and that caught my attention immediately, because as a clinical psychologist and also as a medical practitioner, you get to interact with families a lot. Let me speak to two very major disruptions that we encountered this year, particularly people having to work from home. The World Economic Forum projects that over 40% of people will continue working from home. That is a major shift from what they have been used to. And then at the same time, parents also having to combine their role as teaching assistants, because the children in some instances are educating from home instead of from the school or boarding school. What is the impact of these developments on the family?
Yeah, there are two sides to this. There are some good things about people staying home for families, and there are some challenges with that. I want to talk about the good first. The good is that now families are finding time to spend together more than it used to be. So the bonding with families is really, getting better, even with kids and their parents. Because when there was no pandemic, parents are virtually almost all the time not in the house. So kids and bonding with them and learning from parents was quite dysfunctional. But now it's become better with the pandemic because you have families spending more time together and they are focusing on what is important. Now travels have not become too important. Businesses are finding ways of running from home and all that. So families are actually becoming better in terms of improving their relationships and bonding. The negative side to this also has to do with the fact that there are two things. One, the stresses of being in charge of the home all the time. A parent having to be around the kids, teaching them and cooking and all that, it has become more. So the stresses and the financial demands and commitments around home around this time has gone up. The next most important thing that has become a challenge all over the world has to do with abuse. Emotional, physical, sexual abuse has gone up all over the world because people usually use, going outside the home as a way to cope with an abusive relationship or move away from an abusive environment. But now they will have to live longer in those abusive relationships and abusive environments. And because of that, abuse has gone up. Some countries has more than tripled or doubled. And so that is very, very critical for mental health. Then also people use social gatherings and moving away from the home environment to network and connect with other people and have that kind of refreshing, relationships with other people, and that is gone. And so if that was one of the major coping strategies of people, it means that is gone. So now they have to find other ways of coping with that kind of whatever challenges they are facing. And that also becomes critical. So aside the positive of the fact that there is some bonding with families and children are beginning to interact with their families better, marriages, if you have issues with your husband, you have time to talk with them and bond with your spouse, and all those things are a good thing. The stresses and the abuses relating to living in a certain environment has also gone up because there is no escape, no route for people to deal with all those challenges they may be going through. And that is very significant for mental health.
Doc, you mentioned two things that I find very instructive. The first one is the outings and social functions as an escape route. So now we understand that when people go to funerals and they go to these functions, it's not just because they love the dead, but it also provides some outlet for venting, for just escaping from the tensions and pressures of being at home all the time. And you're saying that when these are cut out or reduced, it increases the tensions, correct?
Yes, please. Yeah, it does, especially with abuse. If it's an abusive environment, whether physical, sexual, or emotional, or verbal, or even financial abuse. So that is very, very critical in this season, because all kinds of research findings have indicated that it's gone up more than doubled or tripled in some countries. And that is very, very significant.
Let me go over to the implications for family longevity. Is there a possibility, or should it be the case, that we should pay attention to the potential for pressure on families or on marriages and potential divorce?
Yes, any kind of dysfunctional situation or crisis, if not handled well, the ripple effect is unimaginable. You see, in a time of pandemic, the focus of everybody is on the virus or the pathogen to deal with it and all the deaths and all that. But the experiences people go through and all the psychosocial issues going on is largely neglected. We really don't talk about it. Even at the beginning of this, you realize that even mental health services and stuff was not as major as, the focus was not, major like the other things they were doing to control this pandemic. And the impact of the psychosocial impact of a pandemic, way outlives the pandemic. The virus may die, people may recover, but the recovery for psychological issues, it lingers for some time. The post-traumatic stress, problems and all the abuse and the impact of the abuse on families and all that, it really doesn't go away. So we expect that divorces may go up. We expect that family, conflicts and stuff will go up. we expect that if children grew up in were exposed to a certain traumatic events around this season in the family, it's going to affect their later development. Because if a child is with an abusive father, the impact of that abuse doesn't go away even if the pandemic ends. So the psychosocial implications of the season way outlives the season. As for the virus, he may die. Some of those physical implications of the pandemic may be easily solved, but the psychosocial things will linger on for a long time, especially if people do not, cope properly even with the season. It's going to linger on for a long, long time. And especially if people are losing their jobs or they are losing some family members, the trauma relating to that would linger on for a
Dr. Newman, let me pick your mind on two more issues and then we will be reluctantly let you go. But you mentioned the mental health pressures. You worked with us on the core program and you got to interact with young people and the challenges that they are facing and the kinds of trauma and pressures people are facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Give our viewers and listeners a peek into some of the hidden pressures that people are coping with or dealing with while smiling to the whole world out there.
Yeah, there are three main things that happen in any crisis, even in this season, that we realize in this season: stress, anxiety, and depression. Stress of reorganization, stress of going to work or coming back home, stress of even following all the protocols, to control this pandemic. So stress, financial stress, stress of work, stress of being sacked from work, stress of handling all the protocols and all that, major. And usually people make these issues a personal issue and not a health issue. Because of that, they don't seek help. Then anxiety about the future, about what they will do, about when the pandemic is going to end, whether they will die or not. I had some people come into the hospital with physical symptoms, which was, some people's pressures, BP were going up. People were having palpitations. They couldn't sleep well. They were having all kinds of non-specific, body symptoms because of anxiety. They were just scared about the season, whether they would die or they won't die, or a family member is going to pass or not. And even their own future, about how their businesses are going to go, their work and all that, whether they will be sacked from work. I knew some young people who were sacked from work and now they are unemployed and they are wondering what is going to happen to them. So anxieties about this season is really, really high. Then also, anybody who is not able to cope with their stresses and anxieties may go into depression. Anybody who finds an effective way of coping with their stresses and anxiety, they may not go into depression, but those who are not able to do that, they may go into depression. And those who cannot handle or do not find better ways of dealing with their depression may even decide to commit suicide. So these three things are very, very critical in this season. But I said earlier on that people make these issues personal issue, and because of that, they want to find ways to deal with it themselves instead of a health issue. For example, someone gets COVID-19 and they show symptoms of cough or something. They go to the hospital because of that symptom for help. But when they have stress and anxiety and depression, that is also a health issue, but they don't go to the hospital because they don't know it's a health issue and they need help. And now we know even the COVID-19, when people have the virus has some kind of, impact on the brain, damage the brain, such that they have some neurocognitive deficits, even because of the impact of the virus on the brain. So these things are there. Then boredom and frustration and anger about the season. Then I talk about abuse is also significant. There are a lot of people who have been abused at home and they can't talk to anybody. Sometime this week, I had a call from someone who was, sexually molested by someone, because the person went to visit and all that. So all these things are happening, and they are shy to talk about it. They can't even talk to anybody about it. There's someone I had to help who had been raped by another person, and that is the characteristics of this season. But it is important for us to realize that mental health is part of health. So it is not a personal issue, it is a health issue, and they need some kind of professional help. In the same way, when they have cough, fever, and they have some respiratory symptoms, they go to the hospital. In the same way, some of these things are health issues, and they need some kind of professional help in order to deal with the impact of these issues on their lives.
You couldn't have said it better, but before you go, would you say that even the just ended election and the tensions and pressures that come with it could also increase the stress and anxiety and pressure on people?
Yeah, it will. It depends on people's past experiences, their expectations, and their coping strategies. Past experiences, expectations, and their coping strategies. So if people have very, very bad past experiences with crisis, it becomes the foundation for their future, actions, and that may affect them. So if they've had some terrible bad past experiences, it's going to affect, how they approach situations in future. Then also expectations. Those who have wild expectations about governments and their party winning and what they will stand to lose and all that, the impact on them is going to be greater. Then those who do not find effective coping strategies to cope with the situation, then they will also go into some problem. Usually when people are going through issues, they have two evaluations. The first evaluation is that they evaluate the situation to find out whether it is dangerous or it is bad or it's life-threatening. It's life-threatening. It's life-threatening. That evaluation is bad. If that evaluation is bad, then they are going to go into some kind of emotional problems. Then the next evaluation they do has to do with the ability they have to deal with it, whether internal or external resources to be able to deal with what they have evaluated. If that internal, external assessment, the resources they think they have, they feel is also inadequate, then they'll go through some kind of emotional problems. And depending on the kind of help they receive, then they are able to deal with it or not. If they make it a personal issue, they may not be able to deal with it well. But if they seek help, then they are likely to deal with it effectively. Some people may use dysfunctional coping strategies like blaming others. They will use some kind of alcohol or smoking or some form of dysfunctional way of coping, even in this season. And all those, dysfunctional way of coping adds to the already, negative experiences they are having, and that is going to worsen their situation. So we have a pandemic and election on our hands that some people lost, others won, and depending on these three things, the way forward for them may either be difficult or it may be easy for them.
Dr. Newman, on the lighter side, trolling people on social media, can it make the situation even worse?
I want to depend on the type of trolling, the fun of trolling sometimes diffuses tension. Now I've realized that Ghana has become a big fun place where anything can be fun for the nation. So you realize that if people enjoy the fun aspect of trolling instead of the negative aspect of trolling, it may have its positive sides or negative sides. But sometimes you may find a video someone will post and it's funny, and laughing about it will ease some kind of tension. But if it becomes too much, then it may have a negative impact on the person who is being trolled.
Finally, Dr. Newman, let me ask you about next year, because some issues have delayed response. What is your projection about what is likely to happen to individuals, to families, and the society at large next year, arising from the tensions of this year?
Yeah, I think that there are two things. Those who have been able to learn the lessons and improved on their lives and the systems, their support systems, next year is going to be a good year for them. Those who haven't really learned the lessons and improved on their lives and how they handle issues, it may be difficult. That is why I thank God that the pandemic had a certain impact on the church, because the church is now positioned to be better in reaching the current generation with all the strategies that have been developed. So I expect next year to be better. I'm laughing about this and I'm saying this, because personally I've become better this year. And no pandemic or no situation actually will break me, because I've learned so much lessons. I've improved on my life and the systems around me. So I'm really expecting something really, really good next year, because in every crisis there are opportunities and there are challenges. Those who focus on the opportunities, they make progress. They develop themselves. They improve on their systems. People are developing new business strategies and models to be able to become better. So I think next year is going to be a good year for those who learned the lessons and developed better systems or ways of doing things. But those who didn't, and next year may be quite tough and challenging for them, because I think there are more challenges coming up.
Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, clinical psychologist, medical practitioner, carpenter, and a minister of the gospel. You wear so many hats that when you talk, it is multifaceted. Thank you, and may I wish you a Merry Christmas on behalf of all of us here at Springboard Virtual University.
Thank you very much. A Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you too. Always
يا ولد سأخبر أمك.
Attends que je le dise à ta mère.
So put a mask on, or else we'll tell your mom.
Your smartphone is just a phone until you have the Advantage app. This is your power to know more and do more. With a few instructions and a tap to send, you will be sorted out within minutes. Take advantage of our app. Buy a policy from any of our subsidiaries, request for a quote, make a claim, and check your statement. What's more, you can also get health tips, traffic information, and find garages and more. Download the Advantage app on Google Play and Apple Store now. Take Advantage. Here's to over 95 years of trust.
Enterprise, your advantage.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university, and those were the thoughts of Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur. I was trying to catch up with the notes and very, very interesting thoughts. I'm wondering which of them is the most significant for me, but I'll leave Kofi to do his first, and I'll tell you which part of Newman's thoughts caught my attention the most. Kofi, which of the things he touched on? A challenging year. He also used the word interesting, revealing. He also talked about this year being a stepping stone to something major. Then he said, considering trends, sometimes things tend to seem to decline. Every year it gets worse in some areas and also gets more powerful in some areas. But the parts I'm most interested in: increase in family bonding on one hand, positive. Increase in abuse on one hand, negative, emotional, physical, sexual, and all kinds of abuse. And then also the potential for some of these fallouts to continue to next year with higher divorce rates and so on. Which part of his presentation caught your attention the most?
So generally the revealing thing, but when he said we should expect another one or more.
I didn't like him for that.
I think it's possible, but I also have a feeling that the world is better prepared. So it won't have the kind of devastating effect that it would have had if we were caught by, a total surprise. And I agree with him in terms of the effect on the family. Again, see the revealing thing there. It exposes where the cracks are in the system. And I agree with him that a lot of that is going to happen. And there will be a tail. So after this, things will follow which trace their route to 2020. You can see it in companies already, and it will, show in families where people have gotten together and they realize that they had more, to be happier about than, fight about. Relationships will get better. In places where people get together and realize that it aggravated their differences, yes, you can expect divorces and so many other things. People are able to cope by leaving. So if I have a problem with you, but just leaving the space I am in with you helps me to just get myself back, cope, and I can come back and spend another day or so with you. And when it gets too much, I just leave. But where we are cooped in a house and I can't leave, it will boil to a head and something is going to explode. Now, those things are real. I mean, clinical psychologists understand these things, and a lot of people have come to see it. Now, those things will lead their tail because those explosions will happen. A lot of married couples are able to survive because everybody goes to work and they come, they spend a few hours, they go to bed, they wake up, they go to work. But now you are there, you have to confront the issues, and it will bring the facts to the fore. So I agree with Doc, but I always like to say the negatives are real, but 2020, interestingly, has not entirely been a negative year.
Absolutely.
So the positives too will be there.
On the lighter side, I read an article about COVID-20. And the writer was saying that the COVID-20 is the after effects, the fallout of the COVID-19. That's another discussion that we'll have. But let's settle today to talk about the effects on the economy and business. And I want to start off from the point of people working from home, the implications for productivity, turnover, and even the social dynamic or the productivity dynamic of companies having to separate themselves, work largely from home. I mean, in my pastoral practice, I spend 2 days on site and all the other days off site because of the change in arrangements. What are the implications of this?
So that's going to be one of the most enduring legacies of 2020, the dynamic of work. And it's not all negative. Why it will be the most enduring is that I always like, when we analyze some of these things, I like to tell people that before the Second World War, the world was a different place. Then after the Second World War, everything was redone. Society was rearranged. Even the financing, mortgages, and came after the Second World War. They were, jazzed up to a certain level. This is another epoch. Now, the systems we apply today are mostly post-World War II systems. So if we are talking about something that happened in 1950, 50-year systems, and already those of us in the analyst community and in the policy, community where we are thinking and talking about what we are running and things we are using, that kind of thing, we've already complained that some of these things don't fit the current situation. Information technology was not the way it was 1950.
Absolutely.
And things have changed so much, but we've held on to some of those things. One of those things is work and how it's organized. I don't mean to go into too much history, but post-World War II, work is go to a place. That is what creates a lot of traffic and commuting and all those things. It used to be there, but it wasn't as pronounced. Now it's very pronounced. Now, this whole concept of go to a place, we knew 20 years ago that it was no longer valid. And indeed, certain professionals like lawyers, architects, etc., had started working in remote locations already. But the paradigm couldn't be broken because we're all steeped in that tradition, move from a place and go to another place. COVID-19 has forced us to break the paradigm. So as I speak, it is broken. Why is it broken? People have realized that you can conduct effective work in a dispersed arrangement. Companies like Twitter have decided they are never going to go back to the old arrangement anymore. I can tell you in my firm that the norm now is to work off-site and we only arrange to meet if we have to meet in the office. In the past, it was the opposite. The norm was to always be here, and if we are not going to be there, we have to arrange not to be there. That will remain. Why? Because the technology has been there, and you realize that those technologies were there. Cisco WebEx, Microsoft, Skype, even Zoom was there in a very small way, but all of a sudden they have been moved to the front.
Some people think that the vaccine will be the turning point. Do you think that after the vaccine and the fear of the virus has gone, the gains of working differently will force people to stay with what has worked for them?
Some people will go back to what we knew, but they will quickly realize that there's no virtue to it. And some people will stay with the new paradigm. I am quite sure my company is likely to stay with the new paradigm. I've told you, Twitter says they're never going to go back. A lot of people are not going to go back because it makes sense. It makes sense for you to stay at home, start working at 7 o'clock till 10 and avoid the traffic. And then maybe if you want to come to the office, fix your meeting, that kind of thing. So the world will not be the same. And I'm saying it's not all negative. We will find that we'll use technology better and we'll all make better use of our time.
What are the implications for productivity and national GDP as a whole?
So productivity, the thing is this, there's a psychology to work. Now, for instance, if you have to work from home, people are finding, and by the way, this is still being studied, so we will find new things. But some of the things that we are noticing, reading around these things, is that people are finding that when you have the flexibility to work from home, you actually work more hours.
Correct.
So you realize that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So coming to work.
In church, I will say, I have a witness.
Yes, you see. And it's very interesting because the mindset was, if you work from home, you are distracted, you will not be focused, the kids are all over the place. And people realize that when you are working from home, you do a better job. You lock yourself for a while. You do a very good job. You take a break. You take care of your kid. You do something else. You come back. But you start working around 6 o'clock or when you wake up.
I did 4 a.m. today, very comfortably, and I wasn't bothered at all.
In your pajamas on your bed.
Oh, it's easy.
With your laptop and the Wi-Fi. All right? And then you go, take a shower, you come back. And you work till 7, 8, 9. Okay? And you don't really feel like you're working. So people realize, why do I have to spend 2 hours in traffic to come and spend 6 hours at work effectively, because you take 2 hours breaking and that kind of thing. Spend another 2 hours going back, those things are fact. But there's another psychology to work. When you are working in a team and you have a problem, you can just call this person. What do you need? You can get together. There is something a synergy that comes from contact. That contact we are trying to replace with technology, and most of it has been replaced. You call somebody on the phone, you do a Zoom call whilst you are working, you do a team view thing, that kind of thing. It works. But it's coming up that the physical contact has a certain extra. Okay, when you are there and I'm there. And look, I have my issues with Zoom because the thing breaks up and you lose your train of thought and this and that. And there's also the whole new Zoom dynamic. Let me give you an example from a lawyer's point of view. So courts are now taking testimonies from people in their homes on Zoom. And there was a guy who was giving testimony from his home on Zoom. And he had a glass of wine beside him. Okay, and as he was giving his testimony, he was sipping his wine. Ain't no way you can do that in the court. All right? And the effect of wine on your testimony is something else. All right? But this is the guy in his home. And you are taking his testimony on Zoom. And to relax him, he has his glass of wine. Are you going to say no? And so if you were in a court, totally different arrangement, totally different dynamic. I can tell you that just entering a courtroom and being called to sit up and speak in a courtroom, that's a whole load of things to people.
In terms of your
emotions, demeanor,
speak the truth,
all kinds of things.
Possible.
Yeah. And there is even a legal principle about contempt in the face of the court. Drinking wine in court would have been contempt in the face of the court. But that whole concept would change because you are in your house.
Will there be some need for unlearning and then relearning?
Absolutely. A lot of that. And this is one of the examples. There are times when really you have to put on the mindset of the office if you're in office. Recently, people have had problems. That's one of the things we call the Zoom effect, where they are wearing only shirts and they didn't have underwear.
Don't go that way.
Yeah, and people have had problems with that. And people have had problems where they couldn't switch on their Zoom or they couldn't mute it and things were happening. I've, seen a number of things that we all know when they happen, people's children screaming. That's the Zoom dynamic. Now, we'll have to learn how to do that right. We have to unlearn that when you have supervision, then you work. So people cannot work from home. Mentally, they can't psych themselves. They have to be in the office. They have to be dressed for it. There has to be a boss who is on his neck or her neck. Okay? And that dynamic is something that we have to unlearn, because you're going to get to the station where you get a job and you are not required to be in an office. My daughter has a job like that. From day one, she got a job and she's not required to be in an office. Okay, so if you have learned only to be effective by being in a particular location and having a certain arrangement around you, you have to unlearn that and learn to be effective in your house arrangement. So that dynamic is very crucial. It has effects on productivity and therefore has effects on everything else after productivity, companies, performance and other things. One of the key things that has been found is that the cost for companies has gone down. Some companies provide lunch. They don't do that anymore. Electricity cost has gone down. Now, data costs have gone up for people in their homes, but has gone down in offices. Now, so what people are doing now is that they are making people pay for their house data.
Yeah.
Okay, so that dynamic has happened. I mean, so companies are paying for people, home Wi-Fi's, yeah. But the dynamic is that the data cost is lower at the office, but it's higher at home, And so some of these things are happening, Some people have experienced higher productivity. Like I said, they work longer hours and all those things. Others have experienced lower productivity. There are cases too where you can't work, like engineering and things that require hands-on. You have to be there physically.
Let me go to the subject you are very familiar with and very excited about at all times. Education. What are the implications of a year like this for education? I mean, I know we've gone through the lockdown and come out. Some schools are back in. But as a whole, what will 2020 signal in terms of education and going forward? What will it look like?
It's going to be massive. So for many schools, school is not any longer something to physically attend. School is not a place to go. It's an experience to have.
You said the same thing about work.
Exactly. And in the case of work, there are times when you have to be physically there. Okay. And some jobs will evaporate. Some jobs will disappear because of this. All right. But some jobs cannot. If you are building a machine, you have to be there to be building it and putting these things inside. Okay. But in the case of school, almost everything can be done from a remote location. What if it's an experiment, if it's a kit, even if it's an engineering, whatever it is, you can have your own kit in your house. There's the lecturer on the screen or on your laptop, and they're showing you what to do, and you can get the effect there. So in terms of school, and we put people on a campus. Now that itself has health dynamics. And today we are learning it's not necessary to do that anymore. There's a huge cost of housing. Now, everybody has a child who is doing schooling online now. Okay, so the question is, I think we will have people to resist this move and others who will embrace it. The question is to what extent, especially will governments embrace it or allow it? Would you, we have things about online courses and distance courses. They used to be the exception. They will now become the norm. But can we get to the point where if you went to Harvard online, you will get the same level of respect as somebody who went and sat in Harvard? Okay, so as for education, there will be massive changes because all of a sudden, it does not make sense anymore to do certain things the same old way. But some people will fight it.
Anytime you mention the new way versus the old way, I think about another industry. Let's talk about real estate. What are the implications for investment in real estate? We have the housing market, we have also the office complexes, the high rise. What are the implications of COVID for the real estate industry?
Again, so many things have been studied. So residential real estate, okay, people need to be in their houses. Now, when we were growing up, when you built a house, you didn't put computer cabling in it. Today, it won't make any sense. And when you build a house today, people are going to have studies and places where they go to communicate with other people. And I'm trying to find a word for it, but even if it's not a study, it's going to be some corner where if you need to communicate with somebody, you go. You know why? Zoom is showing that your background is extremely important. And I have so many stories, but we don't have time, so I'm not going to tell you. But people are finding that it is crucial to have a place where you go to do video calls. Dedicated.
So are you foreseeing a time when a real estate company will announce that or would advertise and say, this building comes with 2 small
That would be a selling point.
Right.
Yeah? Now, so what's the effect? So residential real estate, there's a certain dynamic. But the effect will more be on commercial real estate, especially office space.
Correct.
Again, because of working from home and the fact that the requirements are now different. Look, way back about 10 years ago, I used to work in another company, more than 10 years ago. And when we started using email, I noticed something, that I could come to the office at 7 or even 8 and go into my office. And working with email, I will be sending email going back and forth. And I am in the generation which saw memos, paper memos. Before then, when you wanted to send a message to Albert, an official message, you type a memo from, to, date, subject. You print it out and you take it to that person. They have inbox and outbox. You put it in their inbox. They read it, they minute on it. The secretary comes and takes it, works on it. And then we transit it to email. And the email format is the same as the memo format, from to whatever it is. But now electronically it goes, the person responds. Secretaries were cut out, and that profession has died. Now, you get to the point where you go to the office, and for the whole day, you have not interacted with anybody physically except by email. This is more than 10 years ago. Now, it was present then. Today, it has become almost imperative. So, why do you need an office to house 700 people?
So you foresee a decline in
there
demand?
Will be a decline in demand for the normal office space today.
So if I came to your house at dawn tomorrow and said I'm going to build a high-rise 15-story office complex, what advice would you give me?
I would say, yes, you can build it, but if in the past you needed 3 companies to fill all of it, this time you need 12 companies to fill all of it.
And you add he that hath ears, let him hear.
Yes. What the times are telling, so you can discern them.
When I come back to you to close, we'll be finding out who the big winners will be and who the losers will be in all this agreement, because there must be winners and there must be losers.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to you on that. But let me say a big happy birthday to CC Bruce of the Enterprise Group.
My boss.
You've worked with over the years.
Yes,
so CC Bruce, happy birthday to you. And then Marian Apasampong, happy birthday to you as well.
Hey,
and then,
my good friend too.
You see, all of them are your friends. And then Loretta Aite and Laura Kolache, you are twins. So happy birthday to you as well. So that is 18 days more to the end of the year 2020. And Kofi and I are trying to point to the year, how it has been, and not just the events, but the understanding, the interpretation, and the implications going forward into the year 2021. Kofi, who will be the big winners in all this? What kind of person, what kind of company, what kind of government, what kind of posture will make one a winner, and who will be the big losers?
Kind of person. So let me put it in this way: an attitude. Okay. And the concept will be people who can unlearn quickly and relearn quickly. If you ask specifically who are likely to be, it's going to be the tech companies. You know, when the railway happened, the railway companies made money. And then in America, when the roads, the interstate took over, the truckers made money. Now, when the information superhighway started, okay, the computer firms made money. Now, when you have a situation where the internet has taken over, those who are there are going to make the money. So clearly, Zoom's market price has shot up. Now, every major technology company is working on a virtual meeting platform. They are going to be the big winners. Now, the people who are going to follow them closely are going to be the next winners. So, companies and people who appreciate that this is a trend that will not be reversed and therefore take advantage. The delivery industry, okay, dispatch, okay, and this is motorbikes, okay, will become a big deal, all right? Even today, you can see what's happening. If you are selling food, the food itself is not going to be the issue. It is going to be service, and the service is delivery. Okay, so people who are able to, and in the marketing, in the 7 P's, 8 P's of marketing, it's going to be convenience. So I'm saying these because the concepts are important. You can apply them whatever you are doing. Yeah. If you can take the convenience principle, find a way of making people enjoy a lot of convenience in what you do, all right, you will win. But you need to have a tech focus, and you don't have to do the tech yourself. That's a good thing. Good. Okay, you should find people to do it for you, but the concepts and that's why I'm saying is an attitude. You must be prepared to do the shift and then kind of adjust what you're doing to that shift.
It would seem that in the conversations that people will be having as part of their strategy for the year 2021, a lot of attention should be paid to not just the regular imperatives like price, quality, quantity, and so on, but you're saying that convenience should be a very big one. And on the wings of that, you also probably would look at health and safety.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the particular season that we are in.
Yes.
Now, who will be the big losers, Kofi?
It will be people who have so much legacy, like you built a 12-story office building, okay?
And it's unoccupied.
And it's unoccupied. Buildings are going to empty out. And people who have a resistance to change. The thing about this change, and previously change happened slowly. This change is no respecter of slow people. It will change all of a sudden. Okay, so if you have a big restaurant and people are not coming there anymore, and you are thinking twice about whether to have a delivery arrangement or not, whilst you are thinking, the business is going to leave you.
Are you allowed to even think?
You know,
you should be running.
You should be out there doing it. You know, so It's people who have a difficulty overthink these issues that are going to be the big losers, and people who have a lot of expenditure in the legacy systems. And again, on a national level, governments need to move quickly with these things because they'll be left. Laws will fall behind, policies will fall behind. Okay, when COVID happened, governments are now scrambling. And something that has also happened, there is a totally new thinking about deficits. The US put out $2 trillion. I'm telling you, you don't have an idea how much that money is. Nobody has an idea. 2 trillion is a lot of money. $1 billion is a lot. Okay, so $1 trillion and two, and there's more. The question is, what happened to all their thinking? They have whole political philosophies built around debt. Don't run up the deficit. Nobody is thinking about that anymore. The whole issue of taxation is going to be questioned. If governments can print money, put out $2 trillion, and your government did it in Ghana, why do I have to tax me? Why do I have to pay? Why don't they just print money to the tune of the tax they are going to collect? Because inflation is the most fairest taxation. Okay, so at the governmental level, at the policy level, a lot of issues are going to come up because governments tend to be slow, but nobody's waiting.
Let me conclude with the subject that has dominated our national conversation in the past month and beyond. We've had a conversation about the effects of 2020, the lessons, the learnings, but I know you wear a political cloak in your thinking, and it would be unfair to have you for so long and not ask you the learnings for leadership from the year 2020. What kind of leadership think would emerge out of a year like 2020? Because whatever it is, you're going into 2021, and there is a governing party. There are leaders who are leading this country, and 2020 has lessons that you can't run away from. What would be your closing thoughts on the kind of thinking that the government of Ghana and any nation that has its people at heart should look at going forward, especially in the light of COVID-19 and the disruptions of 2020?
Right.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Of 2020. Yes.
So, I'm a service marketing professional, a consultant in that. I've lectured in that area. My best answer will be fit in services marketing. Governments and companies and leaders generally must start adopting this thing we've been saying for a long time, a service mentality.
Explain.
I explain it as follows. Whatever you are doing, think about how do I serve people, and then adjust to the present paradigm. If it is medicine, if it is roads, whatever it is. Now, why? Because that is how you are going to get far in as a politician or a leader. That's what, in thinking and acting. Think about, for instance, health. All of a sudden, COVID happened, and we're all locked up in our homes and in our countries. Some of our leaders, when they have problems, they fly out for medical care. Okay? All of a sudden, you couldn't fly out because the UK was worse than Ghana. America is worse than anywhere in the world. So where are you going to go?
Fix this place or die.
Fix this place or die. This service mentality is, how do I serve people? And that's how it's going to serve you. All right? You think about everything else in terms of service. Okay? Now everybody was thinking about, what do we do with Kayaye? People were now rushing to go and feed them. That itself was going to create more COVID because you are interacting. When we should have had an idea of, do we have boarding houses? Do we have something to serve these people so we can put them in a place? And you'll be thinking for them, for their well-being, but in the process, you'll be becoming a better leader. Okay? Time won't permit us to go into everything, but every leader should think about, it's no longer going to be the same old thing in terms of the old-time politics. Think about how to be of service to your people. Think about all the paradigms and bring them into this new thinking, okay? And get help in trying to flesh them out. That's how you're going to succeed as a leader in this new time. Unlearn the old, learn the new.
Before you sign off, Kofi, you mentioned thinking for the people. Can we change thinking with the people? Because sometimes you may think that they are supposedly the economically disenfranchised, but just one perspective or amendment they will bring to the idea you have would make it more practical and more relevant to them. Would you say that?
I agree with thinking with the people, but I also have to say this. There are times when you have to be careful what the people tell you, because nobody asks for an Apple iPhone. Okay? The people are steeped in their present reality. Henry Ford said at a point, if he asked people what mode of transportation they wanted or how he would improve it, they will ask for a faster horse. So leaders should appreciate that you need to think with the people in order to get acceptance. But as a leader, you need to lead from the front and appreciate where you need to go and then bring the people to it.
Kofi, we must do this again, and I always enjoy having a conversation with you. It's 12 days to Christmas, and I wanted to give a Christmas present to a young man on our core program. This year, the most defining thing for us has been the core program. So we have had to work for 6 months with the MasterCard Foundation and Solidaridad on a COVID-19 recovery and resilience program. It's been probably on the developmental side of my life the most engaging thing. It's built on 15 years of Springboard. Our net assessment of impact based on statistics and data gathered is that we've affected 23 million Ghanaians.
Oh,
and not just that, we have the second country affected the most by our interventions has been Sierra Leone.
Oh, wow.
In fact, if you go in by regional analysis, Greater Accra is first, Ashanti is second, third is Freetown.
Oh, wow.
Something about English-speaking West Africa is speaking to us. Maybe post-COVID, we should be thinking about how to leverage that as a platform. But
distance is no longer an issue.
we threw out a challenge, and a young man did a project and won a laptop.
Wonderful.
And so I'm going to ask you to present it. When I come back from this break, this last break, Kofi will be presenting the laptop to the young man.
Wonderful. Absolutely a pleasure.
UMB was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation. Over the past 45 years, we've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products, and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we're poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
Auntie Mary, give me fufu 10 cedis, Willie 6 cedis, goat meat, apapo 12 cedis, and chicken thighs, fat one 8 cedis.
Okay, right away.
Sauce keleke, payday is good. Add beer 1 wine.
In the hustle and bustle of life, retirement considerations
Next year
are often relegated to the bottom of our collective financial agenda until retirement hits you unprepared. Living on a meager retirement income can be traumatic and stressful.
Can I have fufu 50 pesos and chicken thighs small 50 pesos?
Hey, please, we don't sell adunle and achomo here.
Hey, adu yawao.
Contact us for details. Terms and conditions apply. Access Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pension.
This is Springboard Virtual University, and today, as we sign off, we are remembering that it's 12 days to Christmas, and Jeff Amenin, is that the correct pronunciation? Yes, so Jeff Amenin is here with us in the studio. Jeff is a Springboard alumnus. Kofi, he was with us in Springboard 2015? 15, yeah. That's 5 years ago?
Yes.
In which town?
UCC.
Cape Coast is always one of our favorite venues. Very raucous, very but they learn. Fun and learning. Maybe that's another of the COVID lessons.
Yeah.
So Jeff was there at UCC, and he was watching us on the core program, and we threw out a challenge for young people to design something virtually. We hadn't met him before, virtually, and then he sent his entry, and then he won. Wow. So today we want to sign off this program by presenting him with a laptop, just to encourage him to participate more in the virtual world that you describe so strongly. What will be your thoughts for Jeff?
I'd like to say well done. I'd like to encourage you, and I'd like to use you to also speak to all the young people out there. I work in Imani, and Imani was founded by Franklin Kujo, and his first main break happened like this. He wrote an essay, BBC essay, and that's how he traveled out of the country. He met people, he got exposed to a whole new world, and in the process, a young man who did, land economy could have had a different life, decided to start a think tank, which is today rated as one of the best in the world and amongst the best in Africa. The point I want to make is self-education in these times is more important than just going to school in a building and doing things. And having won this, it gives you an idea of what is possible. Okay, I just gave you the story of, Franklin Kuji, and I'd like to encourage you. Apply yourself. The best education you will have is the one you learn, not what you are necessarily taught. And to all the young people out there, don't just sit around and wait for somebody to teach you anything. Okay, so it's an absolute pleasure to give you this. We're in COVID time, so we can't shake. But I'm very happy that you won this, and I hope you do even greater things with this resource.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, just before we go, what will be your big message? Not just with the core program that gave you the laptop, but what's your big statement to the world watching you?
Okay, so I can't take it out from the core program. It has to be linked to the core program.
Right.
Because that's what really spoke to me during this season. Because especially during the lockdown, I thought I was prepared for it, like mentally. But I realized after the first week, the second week, I realized that no, I really wasn't prepared for it. So when I saw the core program and I decided to partake in it, then I realized that systems have changed. So the earlier I change, the better, for myself. So the message to any young person listening to us or watching us right now is please make sure you find ways to change yourself, reinvent yourself. Don't stick with the old patterns because it's changing. It's not working any longer. So reinvent yourself. That's the message.
Reinvention is a word from Jeff Amen. He's won himself a laptop. Why wouldn't he ask you to reinvent? So this is a big evening we've had talking about the year 2020, and Jeff is an example. Reinvent, unlearn, relearn, and the world could be a better place for you. He's one of the big winners of the year 2020. So on behalf of Team Springboard, headed by Comfort, I want to say a big thank you to my guest, Kofi Bentil, and to also Dr. Isaac Newman, Arthur, who joined us with those very interesting thoughts at the earlier part of the program. And I'm signing off and I'm saying, God bless you, Merry Christmas, and good night.
He's a turnaround. Whoa, turn around. Turning point, yeah. He's a turnaround. For so long